I'm Clara Jenkins, and at 31, I was finally marrying the love of my life in a dream vineyard wedding in Napa Valley. I covered everything, $40,000 worth of first-class flights and luxury resort stays, just so my family could be there. But 1 month before the wedding, I found out the truth. They weren't coming, not because they couldn't, but because they had secretly tried to reroute the trip I paid for to a Mediterranean cruise instead. That betrayal broke something in me, but it also gave me clarity. And standing at the altar, surrounded by people who chose to love me, I finally stopped chasing the ones who never did. Before I share the full story, let me know where you're watching from, and if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit like and subscribe. This might be the story your heart's been waiting for. Growing up in a quiet, unassuming town in central Texas, I always felt like I was competing for my parents' attention. Martha and Robert Jenkins, my parents, never really tried to hide the fact that my younger brother, Leo, was their undisputed favorite. While most parents might try to conceal their preferences, mine wore theirs like a badge of honor, proudly displayed for everyone to see. Every single one of Leo's achievements, no matter how small, scoring a touchdown in Pee Wee football, getting a lead role in the school play, even just a decent grade on a pop quiz, was celebrated with elaborate parties, expensive gifts, and a flood of beaming smiles. My accomplishments, on the other hand, barely registered. They usually received a quick, obligatory nod if I was lucky. I remember when I was 12, I designed and built a working miniature robot for the regional science fair. It was a complex project, showcasing hours of painstaking work, problem-solving, and coding. I ended up winning first place, beating out students from much larger, wealthier districts. My parents skipped the awards ceremony. Their excuse: Leo had a crucial football practice they absolutely couldn't miss. My science teacher, Mr. Harrison, a kind, gentle soul, drove me home. When I walked through the door, clutching my shiny trophy and a certificate that felt incredibly heavy, my mother, Martha, glanced up from her magazine and simply said, "Put that somewhere it won't collect dust, Clara." That same night, they took Leo out for a lavish steak dinner to celebrate him merely trying out for the varsity team. This pattern, this relentless comparison and dismissal, continued throughout my adolescence. I worked tirelessly, dedicating myself to academic excellence, convinced that if I just achieved enough, if I was just good enough, I would finally earn their approval, their recognition, their love. By junior year, I was not only top of my class, acing advanced placement courses in calculus and physics, but I was also volunteering at the local hospital and interning at a small engineering firm. Meanwhile, Leo, while charismatic and popular, struggled to maintain a C average, but he truly excelled at football and had a flair for acting. Guess which one made my parents positively beam with pride? Their chests puffed out whenever they spoke of him. The real turning point came during my senior year. When college acceptance letters started arriving, I received a full academic scholarship to a highly prestigious university on the West Coast, a monumental achievement that would save my parents hundreds of thousands in tuition fees. Instead of the celebration I'd secretly longed for, my father Robert merely commented with a shrug, "Well, I guess that frees up money for Leo's acting workshops in LA." The very same week, they threw Leo an elaborate, catered party just for landing a minor role in a local community theater production. Leaving for college wasn't just a departure, it was my long-awaited escape. The university campus became my sanctuary, a place where hard work was genuinely rewarded, and achievements were actually recognized. I thrived in the engineering program, securing competitive internships each summer at cutting-edge tech companies. I rarely went home, finding any excuse imaginable to stay on campus during breaks, or to visit roommates' families instead. After graduation, I landed a position at a burgeoning startup in San Francisco, working 80-hour weeks, fueled by a relentless desire to prove myself, to build a life entirely independent of my family's dismissive gaze. While Leo eventually dropped out of community college and moved back home, perpetually finding himself and taking on various short-term gigs, I was rapidly climbing the corporate ladder. By 27, I was headhunted by a major tech firm in Silicon Valley, nearly tripling my salary overnight. I bought my first apartment, a modest but charming 2-bedroom in the Marina District, a world away from the cramped house I grew up in. My relationship with my family had dwindled to obligatory holiday calls and the rare, almost painful, occasional visit. Each time I returned home, my parents seemed to spend the majority of our time together updating me on Leo's life. By then, he had married Sarah, his high school sweetheart, and they had 2 children. They lived in a house my parents had generously helped them purchase, just a few blocks away. "When are you going to settle down, Clara?" my mother would inevitably ask, her voice laced with thinly veiled judgment. "Your biological clock is ticking, you know." This despite the undeniable fact that I was thriving in my career, traveling internationally for work, and building significant wealth and independence. The stark contrast between my family and Daniel's became apparent the very first moment I met them. I met Daniel at a tech conference focused on sustainable innovation. He was incredibly handsome in his bespoke suit, but what truly captivated me was his genuine interest in my career, my ambitions, my passion for engineering. Unlike so many previous dates, who seemed intimidated by my success, Daniel celebrated it, encouraged it. He ran a highly successful architectural firm, specializing in eco-friendly design. He shared my work ethic and ambition, but also possessed a deep understanding of the importance of balance, of genuine connection. After 3 months of dating, he invited me to his parents' anniversary celebration at their beautiful home in Sonoma, just a short drive from Napa Valley. Emily and George Davies welcomed me with a warmth and sincerity I'd never experienced. Their home was filled with photos, not just of Daniel, but of his 2 brothers, each frame showcasing their accomplishments, their passions. During dinner, they asked thoughtful, insightful questions about my work, about my projects, and incredibly, they actually listened to my answers. When I mentioned a recent complex project where my team had developed a groundbreaking solution that saved our client millions, Emily raised her glass in a toast. "To Clara," she said, her eyes twinkling with genuine admiration. "Thank you for sharing your brilliance with our son. We're so incredibly proud to know you." I nearly cried right there at the dinner table. In one single dinner, Daniel's parents had shown more interest and more pride in my accomplishments than mine had in 30 years. Our relationship progressed naturally, effortlessly. Daniel was my rock, always supporting my career milestones, attending company events, listening patiently when I needed to vent about difficult clients or demanding deadlines. I cheered him on when his firm won a prestigious national design award. We moved in together after a year, combining our lives with surprising ease, a testament to our compatibility. The proposal came during a serene weekend getaway to Lake Tahoe. After a private dinner overlooking the shimmering lake at sunset, Daniel got down on one knee. He held out a vintage sapphire ring, remembering a casual comment I'd made months ago about preferring colored stones to diamonds. "You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to build a life worthy of your brilliance, your kindness, your incredible heart. Will you marry me?" I said yes through happy tears, my voice choked with emotion. That night, I called my parents, a flicker of hope, however small, igniting within me. I thought, maybe, just maybe, this monumental news would finally bridge the gaping chasm between us. "We're engaged," I announced when my mother Martha answered. There was a prolonged, uncomfortable pause. Then she said, her voice flat, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Leo just signed up for a new acting workshop in Hollywood? It's very expensive." It was unequivocally clear then. Even this milestone, this profound moment in my life, wouldn't change our relationship. But with Daniel by my side and the warm, genuine embrace of his family, I was determined to create the wedding of my dreams, with or without my parents' enthusiasm. Daniel and I initially considered a traditional wedding in San Francisco, where most of our friends lived, or near his family in Sonoma. But during a late-night conversation about our favorite memories together, our minds kept drifting back to our very first vacation as a couple. 6 months into dating, we had impulsively booked a trip to Napa Valley. Those 5 days in the vineyards had been nothing short of magical. From strolling through rows of ancient vines to tasting exquisite wines, we talked for hours about our dreams for the future, about family, about our aspirations, as the golden California sun dipped below the rolling hills. It was the first time either of us had vocalized wanting marriage and a family of our own. "What if we got married in Napa?" I suggested, the idea forming as I spoke. We could return to where we first truly talked about building a life together. Daniel's face lit up, a radiant smile spreading across his lips. That's perfect, Clara. We could have the ceremony outdoors, surrounded by the vineyards at sunset. The very next day, I reached out to several wedding planners specializing in California wine country destination weddings. After video consultations with 3, we instantly connected with Chloe Davies, no relation to Daniel, purely coincidence, whose warm personality, meticulous attention to detail, and vibrant enthusiasm impressed us both. A Napa Valley wedding is absolutely breathtaking, Chloe assured us during our first planning call. But be prepared for about 20–25% of your invited guests to decline due to travel constraints. This statistic, surprisingly, actually relieved me. While Daniel had a close-knit group of family and friends he wanted present, I was more selective. Outside of my college friends and a few trusted work colleagues, the only family members I truly wanted there were my cousin Rachel, who had always been a steadfast presence in my life, and my Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, who had always shown me genuine affection when she wasn't estranged from my parents due to some long-standing family dispute I never fully understood. However, social expectations and Daniel's gentle, encouraging words convinced me to include my immediate family in the plans. They're still your parents, Clara, Daniel said softly, placing a reassuring hand on my arm. You might regret not having them there, even with everything that's happened. With Chloe's expert guidance, we secured a stunning vineyard estate for both the ceremony and reception. We selected a date 10 months away, giving all our potential guests ample time to arrange travel and accommodation. The venue could comfortably accommodate up to 70 guests, which felt intimate yet sufficient for our vision. We spent countless weekends poring over color schemes, floral arrangements, menu options featuring local produce, and music selections. Daniel and I were almost perfectly aligned on most decisions, both preferring elegant simplicity over ostentatious displays. We chose a palette of deep emerald green, rustic gold, and cream, reflecting the natural beauty of the vineyard landscape. As our plans progressed, one significant concern kept surfacing: the cost for guests. Even with 10 months' notice, traveling to Napa Valley, securing accommodations, and taking time off work required a significant financial commitment. While most of our friends had successful careers and could comfortably afford the trip, I worried about excluding people important to us. My thoughts kept returning to my own family. Despite our undeniably complicated relationship, despite the emotional wounds, I couldn't imagine getting married without them. Yet, I knew with absolute certainty that the cost of flights, accommodations, and time off work would be prohibitive for them, especially for my brother Leo's family with their 3 young children. During a weekend visit to Daniel's parents' home in Sonoma, I confided my concerns to Emily while helping her prepare dinner. I don't want to sound pessimistic, I said, carefully chopping vegetables, but I just don't think my family will come. Napa is expensive, and they've never really prioritized my milestones. Emily placed a gentle, comforting hand on my shoulder. Have you considered helping them with expenses, dear? If it would truly mean having them there, it might be worth it, might it not? Later that night, I discussed the idea with Daniel. What if I paid for my family's entire trip, I proposed, the idea feeling both terrifying and exhilarating. First-class flights from Texas, luxury resort accommodations right on the vineyard for 10 nights, everything. They couldn't possibly say no to that, right? Daniel seemed hesitant, a thoughtful crease appearing between his brows. Clara, that's incredibly generous, but it would be tens of thousands of dollars. Are you absolutely sure? I had received a substantial bonus that year, a record-breaking one, and had been diligently saving. The money was earmarked for a down payment on a future home, a larger space for us, but this felt in that moment infinitely more important. I want to remove every possible excuse, I explained, my voice firm with conviction. If I cover all their expenses, every single one, and they still don't come, at least I'll know I did everything humanly possible. Daniel kissed my forehead, his eyes full of love and understanding. If this is important to you, Clara, I support it completely, without question. With renewed determination and a fragile sense of hope, I worked closely with our travel agent, Mark Jensen, to price out the most comfortable, most luxurious package for my family. First-class flights from our small Texas hometown to San Francisco, followed by private transfers to Napa, For my parents, Martha and Robert, Leo, Sarah, and their 3 children, plus 10 nights at the same opulent vineyard resort where Daniel and I would be staying, totaled just over $40,000. It was a staggering amount, undeniably, but my robust financial position as a tech CEO made it entirely feasible. I allowed myself to imagine the scene, my father, Robert, walking me down the aisle, his arm linked with mine. My mother, Martha, bustling about, helping with last-minute preparations for my nieces and nephews, who I envisioned as adorable flower girls and ring bearers. Maybe, just maybe, this grand gesture, this immense act of love and generosity, would finally bridge the chasm that had separated us for so long. Maybe they would finally, truly see that I had built a successful, fulfilling life, one that was undeniably worthy of their pride, their genuine affection. With this newfound hope fueling me, I finalized all the bookings, arranging for personalized welcome baskets filled with local Napa delights in their rooms and luxurious private airport transfers. I wanted everything to be absolutely perfect. A dream vacation for them, an unforgettable experience, and most importantly, a chance for us to create truly positive, cherished family memories surrounding my wedding. As Chloe, our wedding planner, helped us fine-tune every last detail, I found myself becoming genuinely, excitedly optimistic about having my family there. I pictured introducing them to Daniel's warm, loving family, imagining barriers falling away as they all connected, sharing stories and laughter. Perhaps this wedding, this moment, could heal old wounds finally and start a beautiful new chapter in our fractured relationship. With all the arrangements meticulously completed, all deposits paid, I sent out the formal invitations, each one accompanied by a heartfelt, handwritten note explaining that all travel expenses and luxury accommodations had been completely taken care of, along with detailed itineraries. All they needed to do was show up with their suitcases, their smiles, and enjoy a luxury Napa Valley vacation, culminating in my dream wedding. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope, truly hope, that my wedding day would include the family I had always desperately wanted. With everything booked and paid for, the deposits secured, I decided to call my parents, rather than wait for them to receive the formal invitations in the mail. I wanted to hear their reaction firsthand, to answer any questions they might have about the intricate arrangements. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed their number one quiet Sunday afternoon. My mother Martha answered on the 4th ring, sounding vaguely distracted, as usual. "Hi, Mom, it's Clara. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I have some exciting news." "Let me turn down the TV," she said, her voice flat. I could hear my father Robert grumbling loudly in the background about pausing his beloved golf tournament. "Robert, it's Clara," my mother explained to him, as if that might not be a sufficient reason to interrupt his viewing. Once I had their reluctant attention, I took a deep breath. "Daniel and I have finalized our wedding plans. We're getting married in Napa Valley, California, in October." "Napa?" my mother echoed, a hint of surprise in her voice. "That's quite far, Clara." "I know," I acknowledged, rushing to fill the silence, "which is why I'm calling. I've actually arranged something very special for the family." I then explained carefully that I had booked and completely paid for first-class flights and luxury resort accommodations for all of them, including Leo's family. There was a moment of stunned, almost deafening silence before my father finally spoke. "First class to California? That must have cost a fortune." I downplayed the expense, not wanting to make them uncomfortable, not wanting to remind them of the financial disparity. "I just wanted to make it special," I said. "You'll have your own private vineyard suite, and Leo's family will have a 2-bedroom villa. Everything's completely taken care of, including airport transfers and daily gourmet breakfast." "Well," my mother said, her voice finally warming slightly, a hint of actual approval in her tone. "That's very generous of you, Clara." My heart lifted. For once, I had done something undeniably right in their eyes. "I need to tell Leo about this," my mother continued, her excitement noticeably building in her voice. "Can I call him now?" "Of course," I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "I'll email everyone the full itineraries, but the dates are October 15th through 25th, with the wedding on the 20th. After hanging up, I felt a monumental weight lift from my shoulders. Their initial reaction had been more positive than I had dared to hope. Within an hour, I received enthusiastic text messages from Leo and Sarah, expressing disbelief and gratitude. "OMG Clara, first class to Napa. The kids are freaking out. Thank you," Leo wrote. In the following weeks, our wedding plans continued to progress smoothly. Chloe secured our preferred vendors, including a renowned local chef for the reception dinner and a string quartet for the ceremony. Daniel and I finalized our vows and selected readings. I found my perfect dress, a sleek modern gown with subtle beading that caught the sunlight like sparkling wine. I regularly checked in with my family about their trip preparations. My mother mentioned shopping for resort wear, and Leo asked questions about activities for the children in Napa. My father even called once to ask about appropriate attire for a vineyard wedding. These small, seemingly normal interactions nourished my hope, strengthening my belief that the wedding might genuinely mark a turning point in our relationship. I even sent them information about excursions they might enjoy in Napa, offering to arrange and cover those as well. I wanted their entire experience to be flawless, unforgettable. About 4 months before the wedding, I noticed a subtle, unsettling shift in their communication. My parents became less responsive to texts and calls, often taking days to reply, if at all. When we did speak, they seemed vague about their preparations, almost evasive. "Have you all applied for your passports?" I asked during one call, remembering they hadn't traveled internationally before. "We're working on it," my mother replied dismissively. "There's plenty of time." Leo, previously so enthusiastic, began mentioning potential conflicts. "Sarah might have a work thing come up," he said vaguely when I called in July, "but we're still planning to be there." A small, tight knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach, but I tried to dismiss it. They wouldn't miss my wedding, not after I'd gone to such extraordinary lengths, removed every possible obstacle. Perhaps they were just busy with summer activities and would refocus on wedding preparations as the date approached. Mark, our travel agent, contacted me in August about confirming some last-minute details for my family's bookings. He mentioned that he had tried reaching my parents directly, as I had requested, but hadn't received any responses. "It's important they complete the pre-arrival forms for the resort," he explained, his voice laced with professional concern. "And we should finalize any dietary restrictions for the flights." I assured him I would handle it and immediately called my parents. My father, Robert, answered, sounding unusually hurried and annoyed. "Dad, the travel agent needs some information from you guys. Can you call him back today?" "I'm heading out the door for golf," he replied curtly. "Your mother handles that sort of thing. I'll tell her to call tomorrow." The next day passed with no contact from my mother. When I called again, the conversation felt strained, filled with an uncomfortable tension. "We've been meaning to talk to you about the trip," my mother finally said, her voice unusually subdued. "Robert's been having some issues with his knee, and the long flight and all that walking around vineyards might be problematic for him." My heart sank, a cold dread washing over me. "There are ways to make the flight more comfortable," I offered quickly, desperately. "We could arrange for special accommodations, extra legroom, or even break up the journey with an overnight stay in Phoenix." "We'll figure something out," she said, not committing to anything. Leo's also concerned about Mia missing school. Mia, my oldest niece, was in 2nd grade. Missing a week of elementary school hardly seemed catastrophic, especially for a special family event. But I didn't argue. "The resort has tutoring services for guests," I mentioned instead, "and her teachers could easily provide assignments in advance." Every single concern they raised, I immediately addressed with multiple viable solutions. Yet, their enthusiasm, which had briefly flickered, seemed to be inexplicably waning. The knot of anxiety in my stomach grew larger, heavier. As September arrived, with the wedding just 6 weeks away, communication with my family became increasingly difficult, almost impossible. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts received delayed, non-committal, often vague responses. Mark, our travel agent, expressed growing concern about the unconfirmed travel details. "Clara," he said gently during a call, "we'll need to finalize these arrangements within the next week, or we risk losing the reservations altogether. The resort is at capacity, and the flights are selling out." That evening, I confided my escalating worries to Daniel as we prepared dinner in our apartment. "I'm starting to think they don't want to come," I admitted. blinking back tears as I chopped onions. But why wouldn't they just tell me? Why all the excuses? Daniel wrapped his arms around me from behind, his presence a comforting anchor in my emotional storm. Let's not jump to conclusions, love. They're probably just disorganized, or maybe feeling a little overwhelmed. Why don't you offer to help them complete all the paperwork? I nodded, grateful for his steadfastly optimistic perspective. The next day, I sent a comprehensive email, detailing exactly what needed to be done and offering explicitly to handle all the paperwork myself if they simply provided the necessary information. 3 days passed without a single response. My anxiety evolved into a persistent, gnawing dread that followed me through my demanding workdays and relentlessly disrupted my sleep. The dream of having my family at my wedding, of healing old wounds, was beginning to crumble, and I simply couldn't understand why. With just over a month until our wedding day, the silence from my family became deafening, suffocating. Determined to resolve whatever hidden issues were causing their inexplicable hesitation, I decided to make a surprise visit to my hometown in Texas. I told my office I needed a personal day, booked a Friday morning flight, and texted my mother that I was coming to help them finalize their travel plans. Her response, which arrived hours later, was curt. "This weekend isn't good, Clara. Your father and I are very busy." The blatant dismissal stung deeply, but I was beyond accepting vague excuses. "I'll only need a couple of hours of your time," I replied firmly. "It's important we get these details sorted out immediately." I arrived at their house Friday afternoon, my rental car parked conspicuously in their driveway. When my mother Martha answered the door, her surprise seemed tinged with obvious annoyance rather than genuine pleasure. "Clara, I told you we're busy this weekend," she said, reluctantly stepping aside to let me in. The house looked different, subtly. There were large packed suitcases visible in the hallway, and several glossy travel guides scattered conspicuously on the coffee table. None of them were for Napa Valley. "Are you going somewhere?" I asked, picking up a brightly colored guidebook for the Mediterranean. My mother snatched it from my hand with surprising force. "Oh, just doing some research for a potential trip next year," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. My father Robert emerged from his study, equally startled to see me. "Clara, what are you doing here?" I calmly explained about the urgent need to finalize their travel arrangements for the wedding, pulling out my laptop to show them the forms we needed to complete. "About that," my father said, exchanging a tense glance with my mother. "We've been meaning to call you. There might be a problem with the dates." A cold, icy feeling spread through my chest, chilling me to the bone. "What kind of problem?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The wedding is in 5 weeks." They launched into a rambling series of vague, increasingly unbelievable explanations about unexpected work commitments for Robert, sudden health concerns for Martha, and unavoidable conflicts with the children's school schedules. Each excuse sounded less convincing, more transparently false than the last. "Let me help you work through these issues," I pleaded, my voice cracking slightly. "Whatever the problems are, we can solve them together. I've already paid for everything." When they continued to hedge, to avoid, to deflect, I made a bold offer. "Let me help you with your passports," I said, looking directly at them. "I can expedite the process if you haven't started yet." "We have our passports," my father said sharply, then looked as if he immediately regretted the admission, his eyes widening slightly. "You do?" I said, genuinely confused by his reaction, by their secrecy. "That's great. When did you get them?" "Recently," my mother interjected quickly, a forced smile on her face, "for future travel opportunities." Something definitely wasn't adding up. If they had already obtained passports, why the prolonged reluctance to confirm the Napa trip? Why the constant excuses? I asked if I could use their bathroom, but instead of going there, I quietly, almost instinctively, slipped into my father's study. His computer was still on, an email program open on the screen. Subject lines about Mediterranean cruise itinerary and Athens hotel confirmation immediately caught my eye, a sickening jolt running through me. Before I could investigate further, my father appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of anger and suspicion. "What are you doing in here?" "Looking for a pen," I lied, moving away from the computer, my heart pounding. "Dad, is there something you're not telling me about the wedding trip?" His expression hardened, his jaw clenching. "You should go, Clara. We'll call you next week to discuss everything." They practically pushed me out the door, my questions unanswered, my anxiety skyrocketing into pure terror. As I drove to my hotel, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white, I called Leo, determined to get answers from him. "Leo, what in the world is going on with everyone? Mom and Dad are acting so strange about the wedding trip." My brother sounded uncomfortable, almost guilty. "I really can't talk right now, Clara. Mia has a recital." "This will only take a minute," I insisted, my voice rising. "Have Mom and Dad said anything to you about not coming to the wedding?" After a long, agonizing pause, Leo sighed. "Look, Clara, I don't want to get in the middle of this. You should talk to them directly." "I just tried," I exclaimed, my voice cracking. "They're avoiding the subject completely. And why do they have travel guides for Europe, for cruises?" "I have to go," Leo said quickly, abruptly. "Mia is about to perform." He hung up. That night in my hotel room, unable to sleep, my mind racing with every unsettling detail, I logged into the email account I had used to book my family's travel arrangements for the wedding. I had shared the login information with my parents so they could access their itineraries. Scanning recent activity, I noticed several emails had been marked as read that I hadn't opened myself. One, in particular, stood out. A notification from the airline about a requested change to the reservations. With growing dread, a cold fear gripping my chest, I called the airline's customer service line. "I'm checking on reservations under the name Jenkins," I explained to the representative, my voice trembling. "Has there been any request to change these bookings?" After verifying my identity, the representative confirmed my deepest fears. Yes, there was a request received about 3 weeks ago to change the destination from San Francisco for Napa to Athens, Greece, as the starting point for a Mediterranean cruise. However, it couldn't be processed without additional payment for the fare difference. My blood ran cold. Athens? A Mediterranean cruise? The same destination I had seen hinted at in the guidebooks at my parents' house. The next morning, driven by a simmering rage and profound hurt, I drove back to my parents' house, determined to confront them with what I had discovered. When no one answered the door, I used my old key to enter. The house was eerily silent, empty. The suitcases were gone. On the kitchen counter was a hastily scribbled note. "Gone to Leo's for the weekend. Please lock up when you leave." I called Daniel, my voice shaking uncontrollably as I explained what I'd found. The pieces of the puzzle falling into place with a sickening thud. "They're planning a trip to the Mediterranean instead of coming to our wedding," I said, tears streaming down my face, blurring my vision. "They tried to use the tickets I bought them to change destinations." Daniel's voice was steady, calm, a lifeline in my emotional storm. "Come home, Clara. We'll figure this out together." I changed my return flight to that afternoon. But before leaving, I made one last desperate stop at Leo's house. His car was in the driveway, alongside my parents'. When Sarah answered the door, her expression, a mixture of surprise and guilt, confirmed what I already knew. "You're all planning a trip to the Mediterranean during my wedding, aren't you?" I asked, without preamble, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Sarah's eyes darted away, unable to meet my gaze. "It's complicated, Clara." "Explain it to me then," I demanded, stepping inside. "Help me understand how using the $40,000 I bought for my wedding to go on a cruise instead is complicated." She invited me inside, reluctantly, where my parents sat at the dining room table with various travel documents, brochures, and cruise itineraries spread before them. They looked up, startled and caught, their faces etched with guilt. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice rising, raw with pain. "I spent $40,000 to bring you all to my wedding, to celebrate with me, and you're using it for a European cruise instead?" My mother Martha recovered first, regaining her composure with practiced ease. "We were going to tell you, Clara. We just couldn't find the right time." "The right time?" I exploded, my voice shaking with fury. "The right time would have been before I spent my entire savings on your first-class flights and luxury accommodations. Why couldn't you just be honest with me?" "Napa just doesn't make sense for us," my father argued, his voice surprisingly firm, dismissive. "The kids would enjoy a cruise more, and Leo has always wanted to see the Greek islands." The implications of his statement hit me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. "And seeing me get married, does that even matter? Does that even register on your list of priorities? The uncomfortable, heavy silence that followed was answer enough. Once again, Leo's desires, his convenience, his vacation, had taken unquestionable precedence over my milestone event, my life. We can't change the tickets anyway, my mother added, as if that simple fact resolved everything, absolved them of all responsibility. The airline wouldn't let us without paying the difference for the cruise. So your plan was to just not show up to my wedding? I asked. My voice barely a whisper, the hurt so deep it left me breathless. Without even telling me? Just leave me, Daniel, and our guests wondering where you were? No one responded. In that devastating moment, surrounded by the family who had consistently, relentlessly chosen each other over me, who had never seen me, truly seen me, I made a decision. Keep the tickets, I said quietly, firmly, my voice gaining strength with each word. Consider them my last gift to you. But don't expect to be part of my life after this, not in any meaningful way. I walked out, ignoring their half-hearted calls to come back, to talk. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to salvage. On the flight back to San Francisco, I grieved. Not for the lost $40,000, though that was a significant sum. I grieved for the family relationship I had spent decades trying to salvage, trying to earn, trying to make work. The week before my wedding should have been filled with joyful anticipation, with last-minute excitement, with butterflies. Instead, I was dealing with the raw, agonizing, emotional aftermath of my family's profound betrayal. Daniel had been my unwavering rock, holding me through tearful nights, patiently listening, reminding me, repeatedly, that our marriage was about us, about our love, not about my family's elusive approval. We're creating our own family now, Clara, he would say, gently wiping away my tears. One built on love, on mutual respect, on genuine presence. Despite his incredible support, I struggled to focus on the last-minute wedding details. Chloe, our amazing wedding planner, had been incredibly understanding when I explained the situation, my voice breaking. Unfortunately, family disappointments are more common with destination weddings than people realize, she said, sympathetically during our final planning call. But we'll make adjustments to ensure your day is still absolutely perfect. We quickly revised seating arrangements, adjusting our catering numbers to reflect the significantly reduced attendance from my side. I tried, desperately, to focus on the positive. Many of our friends and Daniel's entire warm, loving family were still coming. Nearly 50 guests who genuinely wanted to celebrate with us, who truly cared. 6 days before we were scheduled to fly to Napa Valley, as I was carefully packing my wedding dress for shipping, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my mother. Just wanted to let you know we're leaving for our cruise tomorrow. Leo found incredible deals on additional excursions. Your wedding just isn't as exciting as what Leo is doing anyway. Have a nice life. I stared at the message, unable to comprehend the sheer cruelty, the callous indifference behind those words. My hand shook so violently, I dropped the phone onto the carpet. Daniel found me curled on the floor beside our bed, the wedding dress half-packed beside me, my body racked with silent sobs. When I showed him the message, his face darkened with a raw, protective anger I hadn't seen before. That's inexcusable, he said, his voice low and dangerous, pulling me into his strong arms. No mother should ever say that to her daughter, ever. What's wrong with me? I sobbed against his chest, my voice muffled. Why have they never loved me enough? Nothing is wrong with you, Clara, Daniel said firmly, holding me tighter. Their inability to appreciate the amazing, brilliant, kind person you are reflects their limitations, their insecurities, not your worth, never your worth. That evening, as I scrolled mindlessly through social media, trying desperately to distract myself from the gaping wound in my heart, a notification appeared. Leo had tagged my parents in photos. With a growing sense of dread, a sickening curiosity, I clicked on the images. There they were, my parents, Leo, Sarah, and their 3 children, all smiling, beaming in front of a majestic cruise ship, a pristine Greek island visible in the background. The caption read, "Day 1 of our Mediterranean adventure. So grateful for this incredible opportunity Iraq blessed our rare family vacation." The timestamp showed they had already left days earlier than they'd told me, earlier than my mother's cruel text had implied. They had lied, even about their departure date, just to spite me, to twist the knife. Seeing them beaming, carefree, in Greece, while I was devastated, heartbroken, in San Francisco, brought a fresh, agonizing wave of pain. Daniel found me staring at the photos, tears streaming silently down my face. Without a word, he gently took my phone and set it aside, then led me to our couch, where he wrapped me in a soft blanket. "I'm calling Dr. Miller," he said, referring to my therapist. "This warrants an emergency session." Dr. Miller agreed to see me the very next morning. In her calm, reassuring office, I poured out everything, from the childhood pattern of blatant favoritism to this final, crushing betrayal. "What your family has done is a profound rejection," she acknowledged, her voice gentle but firm. "But Clara, it's also an opportunity to finally, truly free yourself from seeking approval you may never, ever receive." "Should we cancel the wedding?" I asked, the question that had been lurking, unspoken, in my mind, threatening to overshadow everything. Dr. Miller leaned forward, her gaze direct, compassionate. "Do you want to marry Daniel?" "More than anything," I answered, without hesitation, the words a primal truth. "Then don't let your family take that joy from you too," she said, her voice rising with conviction. "They've already taken enough, haven't they?" That afternoon, Daniel and I had a long, heartfelt conversation about proceeding with the wedding. We discussed postponing, simplifying, or even eloping, just the two of us. In the end, with Dr. Miller's words echoing in my mind, we decided to move forward as originally planned. "This wedding is about our love, our commitment, our future together, Clara," Daniel reminded me, his hand finding mine. "It's not about who sits in the audience or who doesn't." With renewed determination, a fierce resolve, I threw myself into the final preparations. Chloe, with her usual grace and efficiency, helped rearrange the ceremony layout to make the smaller guest count look intentional, intimate, rather than like there were missing attendees. We reallocated some of the budget that would have gone to my family's extensive travel, deciding to enhance other elements of the wedding, upgrading the dinner menu to include even more exquisite local delicacies, and adding a spectacular, unexpected fireworks display over the vineyard at the end of the night. 2 days before our departure for Napa, Daniel came home with an unexpected announcement. "I've invited a few additional guests," he said, looking slightly nervous, a charming smile playing on his lips. "I hope that's okay?" "Who?" I asked, genuinely surprised, my eyebrows raised. "Remember Dr. Julian Thorne? The renowned astrophysicist we met at that charity gala last year. He's agreed to perform a special reading at our ceremony. And Mayor Evelyn Reed, the influential activist we worked with on the city's sustainable housing project, has also accepted. She's bringing her husband." Julian Thorne was a Nobel Prize-winning astrophysicist whose groundbreaking work I deeply admired, and Mayor Reed was a renowned activist and community leader we had collaborated with on several charity projects, someone I considered more a professional acquaintance than a close friend. "You invited celebrities to our wedding?" I asked, astonished, a bubble of surprised laughter escaping my lips. Daniel shrugged, a humble smile on his face. "I reached out, Clara, explaining the situation, how your family had, abandoned you, and asked if they might help make our day special. They both responded immediately that they'd be honored to attend, to stand by you." Fresh tears filled my eyes, but this time they were tears of overwhelming gratitude, of profound love. "You did that for me?" I whispered. "I'd do anything to see you smile on our wedding day," he said simply, his eyes shining with adoration. As we finished packing that evening, meticulously folding our clothes into suitcases, I received an unexpected email. It was from my mother's sister, Aunt Susan. She and my mother had been estranged for years due to some obscure family dispute I never fully understood. A typical Jenkins family drama. "Clara, I heard about your wedding from a mutual friend," the email read. "I know we haven't been close in recent years, but I would love to attend if that's at all possible. I've already booked my flight to San Francisco." I called her immediately, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Explaining the painful situation with my parents and brother, rather than being surprised, Susan sighed deeply, a familiar weariness in her voice. "Your mother has always been, envious of others' happiness," she said. "Even as children, she couldn't stand it when attention wasn't on her. I'm not surprised she's passed that trait to Leo." Susan's validation of my lifelong experience, of the subtle but constant family dynamic I'd struggled with, was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated, a balm to my bruised soul. Aunt Susan, I told her, meaning every single word, I would be honored to have you at my wedding, more than you know. I'll be there, sweetie, she promised. And if you'd like, Clara, I'd be happy to take on any role your mother would have had, to stand by you. The night before our flight to Napa, I made a decisive choice. I logged out of all social media accounts, determined not to torture myself with more photos of my family's self-serving Mediterranean adventure. Instead, Daniel and I focused intently on our own journey, preparing to create new, beautiful memories that would form the foundation of our marriage. As we finally fell asleep, nestled together, I realized that while the pain of my family's rejection was still raw, still present, it no longer threatened to overshadow the immense joy of marrying the man I loved. The man who saw me, truly saw me. Perhaps, I thought, that was the very first step toward true healing. The morning of our wedding dawned with perfect Napa Valley weather, clear azure skies, a gentle breeze rustling through the vineyard leaves, carrying the scent of earth and grapes. As I sipped artisanal coffee on the balcony of our luxurious vineyard suite, watching the early morning light spread across the rolling hills, I felt an unexpected sense of calm, a profound peace settling over me. The hurt wasn't gone, no, but it had transformed into something quieter, a dull ache rather than the sharp, piercing pain of recent weeks. My bridal preparations were scheduled to begin at 10, with the ceremony set for a magical sunset. Daniel kissed me tenderly before heading to his separate preparation room, where his brothers and father would join him. "Next time I see you," he said, his eyes shining with boundless love, "you'll be walking down the aisle." My makeup artist and hairstylist arrived precisely on time, turning my suite into a bustling, joyful bridal sanctuary. As they worked their magic, my college roommate Rachel and two close work friends arrived, champagne flutes in hand, ready to help me prepare, their laughter filling the room. "You look absolutely radiant, Clara," Rachel said, hugging me carefully to avoid disturbing the makeup artist's meticulous work. "Daniel won't know what hit him." Chloe, our amazing wedding planner, appeared periodically, her bright smile a constant, reassuring presence, to provide updates and ensure everything was running flawlessly. During one visit, she pulled me aside with a mysterious, knowing smile. "Daniel has arranged some surprises for you," she whispered. "Just go with it, Clara, and enjoy every single moment." Around noon, there was a gentle knock at the door. Chloe answered it, and then turned to me with a broad, conspiratorial smile. "Your first surprise is here," Aunt Susan entered, looking elegant and regal in a deep emerald green dress that perfectly complemented our wedding colors. Behind her came a distinguished-looking man I didn't recognize. "Clara," Susan said, embracing me warmly, "you look absolutely beautiful. I hope you don't mind, but I've brought someone very special to meet you. This is your Uncle Edward, my husband." I stared in shock. I had never met Edward, having lost touch with Susan during the long years of estrangement from my mother. "We've been married for 5 years now," Susan explained, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I sent announcements, but I suspect your mother never shared that information with you." Another piece of family history, another connection, deliberately kept from me. I welcomed Edward warmly, deeply touched that both he and Susan had made the journey, had chosen to be present. "There's something else," Susan said, looking slightly nervous but resolute. "I know this is unorthodox, Clara, but in the absence of your parents, would you consider allowing Edward and me to walk you down the aisle? We would be honored to stand in for them, to give you away." Tears threatened to ruin my carefully applied makeup, blurring my vision. "I would love that," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion, "more than you know." As the afternoon progressed, my nerves settled into excited anticipation. My dress, a sleek column of ivory silk, with delicate beading that caught the light like sparkling wine, fit perfectly. With my hair swept up in an elegant updo, adorned with small white orchids, I felt more beautiful, more complete, than I ever had in my life. An hour before the ceremony, Chloe arrived with the news that guests were beginning to gather on the vineyard grounds. "Everything is ready when you are, Clara," she assured me, "and Daniel has one more surprise waiting." Curious, my heart fluttering with anticipation, I followed her to a small private courtyard tucked away among ancient oak trees. There, bathed in the soft, golden afternoon light. Dr. Julian Thorne, the acclaimed astrophysicist, was setting up beside a magnificent white grand piano. "Julian," I exclaimed, utterly surprised to see him before the ceremony. He stood and embraced me warmly. "Daniel thought you might appreciate a private performance before walking down the aisle," he said, his voice deep and calming. "To center yourself, to find your peace." For the next 20 minutes, Julian played soul-stirring compositions, pieces that seemed to speak directly to my heart, to the depths of my soul. As the music washed over me, a wave of profound serenity enveloped me, and the last remnants of bitterness, of lingering pain about my family, gently melted away. Today wasn't about who was missing. It was about who had chosen, truly chosen, to be present. When it was time, I made my way with Aunt Susan and Uncle Edward to the ceremony location. Peeking from behind a decorative screen of blooming lavender and tropical flowers, I could see our guests seated in white chairs on the lush green lawn, the rolling Napa Valley vineyards providing a breathtaking, ethereal backdrop. The setting sun cast everything in a magical, golden glow. Daniel stood at the altar, incredibly handsome in his light gray linen suit, looking both nervous and utterly elated. Beside him were his brothers as groomsmen, and across from them stood my bridesmaids in flowing emerald green dresses. In the front row sat Daniel's parents, Emily and George, beaming with unmistakable pride. Beside them were Mayor Evelyn Reed, the powerful activist, alongside several other high-profile guests I recognized from charity events and tech conferences. Dr. Julian Thorne had taken his place at the piano, ready to provide the ceremony music. "Ready, Clara?" Susan asked, offering her arm alongside Edward's. I took a deep breath, a deep cleansing breath, and nodded. As Julian began playing a breathtaking rendition of Pachelbel's Canon in D, we stepped onto the white runner that served as our aisle. Gasps and murmurs of appreciation rippled through the guests as they turned to see me. Daniel's face, as he watched me approach, was everything I could have hoped for and more, his eyes filling with tears of pure joy, a wide, radiant smile spreading across his face. In that moment, seeing his loving gaze, surrounded by these incredible people, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be, with exactly the right people surrounding us. The ceremony was magical in its simplicity, its profound sincerity. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, raw and heartfelt, promising to support each other's dreams, to cherish each other, to build a life filled with laughter and unwavering love. "You may now kiss the bride." Daniel pulled me into a kiss that sealed our commitment, our bond, and my tears of joy finally flowed freely. As we turned to face them as a newly married couple, I was struck by the genuine, unadulterated joy on every single face. These people, some blood relations, others chosen family, professional mentors, friends, all shared in our happiness without reservation, without judgment, without demands. The reception exceeded even my highest expectations. Under a canopy of twinkling string lights strung between the ancient oak trees, we dined on exquisite local Napa cuisine and danced to Julian Thorne's captivating live performance. Mayor Evelyn Reed offered a surprise toast, speaking eloquently about the power of choosing one's family, of building a life founded on mutual respect, admiration, and shared values. "Clara and Daniel," she concluded, raising her glass, "may your marriage be defined not by who is absent today, but by who chose to be present, and by the beautiful, loving family you create together." Daniel's father, George, also spoke, welcoming me to their family with such genuine warmth that several guests, myself included, wiped away tears. "From the moment Daniel introduced you, Clara," George said, his voice thick with emotion, "we knew you were special. Your intelligence, your kindness, your incredible strength, they impressed us immediately. Today we don't just gain a daughter-in-law, Clara. We gain a daughter in every sense of the word." Throughout the evening, Daniel rarely left my side, his hand often finding mine, his touch a constant reassurance that this was real, that this joy was mine. During a quiet moment between dances, as we watched our guests laughing and celebrating, he leaned close to my ear. "Any regrets?" he asked softly, playfully. I looked around at the joyful celebration, at the people who had traveled thousands of miles to witness our union, at the breathtaking beauty of our surroundings, and finally, at my husband's loving face. "Not a single one," I answered truthfully, my voice firm with conviction. "This is perfect. More than perfect." Later, our photographer pulled us aside to capture sunset portraits on the vineyard. As we posed against the spectacular golden and purple hues of the California sunset, I realized I felt lighter than I had in years. The heavy, suffocating weight of seeking my family's approval, of constantly striving for their elusive validation, had finally lifted. It was replaced by a quiet, unwavering certainty that I was worthy of love, worthy of happiness, exactly as I was. "They're going to be incredible," the photographer assured us, reviewing some of the shots on her camera. "These are the kind of photos people can't help but comment on, Clara." Daniel smiled at me knowingly. We had already discussed posting select wedding photos online, not out of spite, but as a pure celebration of our joy, our chosen family. If my biological family happened to see them and realize what they had missed, what they had chosen to give up, so be it. As the night drew to a close, Daniel and I slipped away from the reception, hand in hand, to walk barefoot along the moonlit vineyard path. The joyful sounds of our celebration faded behind us as we strolled, soaking in the peace, the love. "Thank you," I said, stopping to face him, my heart overflowing. "For everything, for loving me, for creating this magical day, for showing me what family truly should be." "Thank you for choosing me," he replied simply, his eyes dark and earnest in the moonlight. "For trusting me with your heart. I promise to treasure it always." Under the vast California sky, surrounded by the gentle rhythm of the vineyard breeze, we sealed that promise with a kiss that felt like the beginning of everything. The morning after our wedding, Daniel and I awoke to sunrise streaming through the windows of our honeymoon suite. As we enjoyed a leisurely breakfast on our private balcony, our photographer sent a preview of our wedding photos. They were breathtaking, capturing not just the visual beauty of the day, but the authentic emotion, the pure, unadulterated joy that had surrounded us. "These are incredible," Daniel said, scrolling through the images. "You look absolutely stunning, Clara." One photo in particular caught my attention. Daniel and I dancing, bathed in the golden sunset light, surrounded by our friends and chosen family, with Dr. Julian Thorne playing piano in the background, and Mayor Evelyn Reed visible among the other notable guests. The golden light gave everything an almost magical quality. "That one," I said, pointing. "That's the one I want to share." With Daniel's encouragement and full support, I crafted a simple post. "The most perfect day with the most perfect man, surrounded by true friends and family. Thank you to everyone who made our wedding so special, especially Dr. Julian Thorne for the incredible music, and Mayor Evelyn Reed for your beautiful toast. I just married Napa Valley, I's chosen family." I hesitated only briefly before hitting post, then turned off all notifications and set my phone aside. This day, this moment, this entire experience was for us, not for monitoring reactions, not for external validation. We spent our first day as a married couple, exploring Napa's hidden gems, enjoying a romantic vineyard tour, and a blissful, private tasting. It wasn't until late that evening that I finally checked my phone again. The post had, predictably, exploded with comments and likes, mostly from friends expressing joy and congratulations. But among the flurry of notifications were several missed calls and increasingly frantic messages from my family. Leo had texted multiple times. "Is that the Dr. Julian Thorne at your wedding? How do you know Mayor Evelyn Reed? Why didn't you tell us important people would be there?" My mother had left a voicemail, her tone dripping with artificial concern, a desperate attempt at control. "Clara, we're worried about you posting such exaggerated photos. People might get the wrong impression about your wedding. Call us when you can." My father's message was more direct, more accusatory. "You didn't need to make such a public spectacle. Very immature, Clara." I showed the messages to Daniel, who pulled me close, his arm a comforting weight around me. "Are you okay, love?" I considered the question carefully, searching my feelings, my emotions. "Actually, yes," I said, a strange, liberating lightness filling me. Their reactions are so predictable, it's almost funny. They're not upset about missing my wedding. They're upset about missing an opportunity to meet celebrities, to bask in reflected glory. That's all it's ever been about for them. "What do you want to do?" Daniel asked. Nothing, I decided, a new strength in my voice. They don't deserve a response. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke to more messages. Apparently, several mutual acquaintances from our hometown had asked my parents about the wedding, having seen my photos online. Uncomfortable with admitting they had chosen a Mediterranean cruise instead of their daughter's wedding, they had crafted an elaborate, fabricated narrative about Robert's sudden severe knee issues, preventing travel. People are asking questions, my mother wrote, her text message revealing her true concern. You're making us look bad, Clara. We need to coordinate our stories. For the very first time in my life, I felt completely unburdened by their manipulation, their desperate need to control narratives, to maintain appearances. I showed Daniel the message, then, with a profound sense of liberation, deleted it without responding. They can coordinate whatever stories they want, I said, looking at Daniel, a genuine smile on my face. I'm done participating in their fiction. I'm done living by their rules. Our 10-day honeymoon became a healing journey. We explored Napa's hidden trails, drove through picturesque valleys, watched breathtaking sunsets over the vineyards, and spent lazy afternoons simply enjoying each other's company in secluded spots. Each day, I felt lighter, more present, more connected to Daniel, and most importantly, more connected to my authentic self. On our last evening in Napa, sitting on a vineyard terrace, watching another spectacular sunset, Daniel asked, "What are you thinking about, love?" "How incredibly grateful I am," I answered honestly, sincerely. If my family had come, I would have spent the entire time seeking their approval, trying desperately to make sure they were enjoying themselves, worrying about their reactions, holding my breath. Their absence, ironic as it sounds, gave me the profound freedom to fully, truly experience our wedding, to be present for us. Daniel nodded thoughtfully, squeezing my hand. Sometimes the universe gives us what we need, Clara, not what we think we want. Returning to San Francisco felt like coming home to a new life, a vibrant, unburdened chapter. We moved Daniel's remaining belongings into my apartment, which would now be our shared home until we found a larger place for our growing future. Unpacking our wedding gifts, arranging photos from our magical honeymoon, we meticulously created a space that reflected our shared journey, our shared dreams. The first Tuesday after our return, I kept my regular appointment with Dr. Miller. I brought wedding photos to share, beaming, and recounted the entire experience. From the initial, gut-wrenching pain of my family's betrayal to the surprising, profound peace I'd found in their absence, in their rejection. "I've spent my entire life trying to earn their love," I explained, the words flowing freely, clearly, always believing that if I achieved enough, succeeded enough, gave enough, they would finally see me, finally love me. Napa, I continued, a profound realization dawning on me, was my last desperate attempt, and it cost me $40,000 to finally accept the truth, which is, Dr. Miller prompted gently, her eyes kind, that nothing I do will ever be enough, I finished, the words carrying a strange, liberating power. The problem was never me. It was always them, and their limitations, their inability to love unconditionally, and continuing to seek their approval would only hurt me, and potentially my marriage to Daniel. Dr. Miller smiled, a look of deep satisfaction on her face. "Clara, that's an incredibly powerful realization. How do you want to move forward?" "With boundaries," I said decisively. "Strong, unwavering boundaries. I'm not cutting them off completely, not yet, but I'm no longer investing emotional energy in changing our relationship, in chasing something that isn't there. I'll interact with them on my terms, when and if I choose to, and it will be on my terms alone." Over the following weeks, my family predictably continued their attempts to contact me, their messages ranging from passive-aggressive guilt trips to transparent attempts to gain information about my new network of celebrity friends. When I finally did answer a call from my mother, I was calm, direct, and unshakable. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, firm, "I understand you chose a Mediterranean cruise over attending my wedding. That was your decision to make. But I won't pretend it didn't happen, and I certainly won't help you save face with your friends or relatives. If you want a relationship with me moving forward, it will be with complete honesty, transparency, and respect. No more lies, no more manipulation." My mother sputtered excuses and justifications, her usual repertoire of deflection, but I remained firm. "Those are my terms," I stated. "Take some time to think about whether you can accept them." Similar, equally firm conversations with my father and Leo established my new boundaries. They were predictably defensive, accusing me of being dramatic, unforgiving, selfish, but for once, their opinions, their criticisms, didn't devastate me. They simply didn't penetrate. Daniel and I settled into married life with profound joy and intention. We hosted dinner parties for our friends, joined a couples book club focused on sustainability, and began volunteering together at an educational foundation for underprivileged students in San Francisco. On weekends, we often visited Daniel's parents in Sonoma, where I was always welcomed with genuine affection, treated not just as a daughter-in-law, but as a beloved daughter. 6 months after our wedding, Daniel's mother, Emily, invited me for a private lunch during one of our visits. "I hope you don't mind, dear," she said, as we settled at a quiet corner table in her favorite restaurant, "but I wanted to check in on how you're truly doing with your family situation." I appreciated her directness, her genuine concern. "Better than I ever expected, Emily," I answered truthfully. Setting boundaries has been incredibly freeing. They occasionally reach out, usually when they want something, or when relatives ask about me, but I no longer feel obligated to respond, to engage in their games. Emily nodded, a knowing, compassionate look in her eyes. "I hope you know, Clara, that George and I consider you our daughter in every way that matters. Family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up, who supports you, who celebrates your joys and shares your sorrows, who truly loves you for who you are." Tears pricked at my eyes, but these were happy tears. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for showing me what family should be." A year after our wedding, Daniel and I celebrated our anniversary by returning to Napa Valley, staying in the very same resort where we had married, sitting on the vineyard terrace where we had exchanged vows, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery oranges and soft purples. We reflected on our journey, on the incredible year we'd shared. "This year has taught me so much about what truly matters," I told Daniel, leaning my head on his shoulder. "I spent so long chasing approval from people incapable of giving it that I almost missed recognizing the genuine, unconditional love that was right in front of me all along." "I'm glad you finally saw it, love," Daniel said, squeezing my hand gently. "You deserve every bit of it, and so much more." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant, fiery hues, I felt a profound sense of peace, a deep, abiding contentment. The $40,000 I had spent on my family's non-attendance, on their explicit rejection, had, in a strange, beautiful way, been the most valuable investment of my life. It had bought me freedom, freedom from a lifetime of seeking validation where it would never be found, freedom from a cycle of disappointment. In its place, I had discovered my own worth, independent of others' recognition. I had found true friends and a chosen family who showed up, unconditionally. I had found in-laws who embraced me wholeheartedly, and most importantly, in the man beside me, I had found a love that was pure, unwavering, and true. A man who loved me exactly as I was, flaws and all. That evening, I posted a simple anniversary photo of us on the vineyard terrace, bathed in the soft twilight. The caption read, "1 year ago, I learned that sometimes the best family is the one you choose. Forever grateful for this man and the beautiful life we're building together. Happy anniversary, my love." If you've ever experienced family disappointment, if you've ever had to create difficult but necessary boundaries with loved ones, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. How did you find healing? Did you also discover that family isn't always about blood? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and please share it with someone who might need to hear that they are worthy of love, exactly as they are. Thank you for being part of my journey of healing and self-discovery.